Chairing the next session is our friend Mr. Babji. Mr. Babji is National Vice President South of the Public Relations Society of India. He was born, brought up and educated at Tirupati, post-graduated in arts, journalism and public relations. He is a graduate in law. Master of Philosophy in Political Science, started his career as a journalist in Bengaluru and soon shifted to government service in Andhra Pradesh. He worked with various ministers, including Revenue and Home at Government of Andhra Pradesh, and was instrumental in introducing a public relations setup at various levels in the police department and in designating PIOs appointed under RTI as PROs. He's retired as General Manager Marketing and PR of a marketing unit of the Government of Andhra Pradesh. Post-retirement, he is practicing law at the High Court of Judicature for the states of AP and Telangana. His awards and recognitions include that of the Best PR Manager, Best Teacher, Best Chapter Chairman, Hall of Fame, Best Blogger, PR Icon, PR Narada, etc. We shall hear more about PR in the public sector. Of course, he is today in this session his session chair. Let us welcome on board Y. Babji. You will chair this session, and we have with you one of the most outstanding intellectuals that we have. He's a scientist and a filmmaker, Dr. Bedabrata Pine. Dr. Pine is an award-winning scientist with the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, NASA, of the United States for 15 years. Of course, he quit NASA in 2009 to follow his passion, which is filmmaking. All of you know about his directorial debut, Chittagong, in 2012, which won the highest national award in India. One of the inventors of CMO's digital imaging technology that enabled the digital camera revolution, from cell phone cameras to movie cameras, such as those used by Red and Ari, to those in space telescopes. He holds over 87 patents and was inducted to the United States Space Technology Hall of Fame. Bedabrata was the executive producer of internationally acclaimed National Best Film Award-winning Amu that premiered in Berlin and Toronto film festivals, the principal researcher for the documentary called Lifting the Veil on the impact of globalization in India, and the writer of the book titled Behind the Events in Kashmir. He received his PhD from Columbia, New York, in 1992 and served as the senior research scientist in, as I said, in JPL, NASA from 1993. Bedabrata Pine, a great speaker and one of truly a pride of the country, Dr. Bedabrata Pine. And it's over to you, sir, Dr. Babji, to take it across.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the session on the second day of the three-day 38th All India Public Relations Conference. We are deliberating upon the umbrella theme, Young India and Communication Revolution. Thanks to Dr. Ajit Pathak and Mr. Swamijit Mahapatra for the beautiful theme. In this session, we have with us an eminent personality. He will speak on the topic hyper-reality to virtual reality, creativity or conformity. To our general understanding, hyper-reality and virtual reality are not physical realities. Hyper-reality is a mingling of human intelligence with artificial intelligence, while virtual reality is an environment created by computer technology that replicates a real physical environment. I am sure while he talks, we may be living and experiencing an environment that he creates. Very briefly, in addition to what has been told, Dr. Bedabrata Pine is a scientist turned film director, producer, and screenwriter. He is a member of the team that invented imaging sensors used in space technology. He used the same cameras in his filmmaking. Welcome, sir. Please share your knowledge. Thank you.
So, should I sit and speak or? I think I'm going to stand. And you know what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do the unthinkable. In a digital forum, bring out a piece of paper. Because I think what I'm going to talk about, in many ways, is that there is a tremendous hype about digital. And I'm going to talk about sort of the seamy side of digital. Things that we don't often get to hear about. Now, very, very briefly, I was reading a LA Times report that apparently young people spend on an average 55 hours a week watching TV, playing video games or sitting in front of a computer. Apparently about 60% of youth today, upon waking up, the first thing they do is to check Facebook or their WhatsApp. There are 1.8 billion Facebook users. Every time some 500 comments are posted, 300,000 statuses are updated. People are walking literally into mountains, into poles, falling off cliffs, selfies. Something actually I had a little bit to do with, and I kind of quite regret. In fact, I'm really worried about lovers today. You know, when I used to pursue a girl, I used to give her every single attention that I could do. Make sure that I interact with her. Make sure that her attention doesn't get diverted. And what do I see today? In many places, a couple, two kids are sitting around, both with their handsets, with their smartphones. I really don't understand how people today do courtship. And I shudder to think what happens when virtual reality comes. Many of you know what virtual reality is. These huge goggles people put on. It's a great technology. Don't get me wrong. I think virtual reality is a great, great technology. But I shudder to think what would happen. Maybe these two, one man and one woman, one boy and one girl, in their own rooms with this virtual reality goggle and creating a virtual character that interacts in the virtual space. Boy, talk about dystopia. So having played a certain role in the rise of digital in the world, you must remember when we started work on CMOS image sensors, 1992, 91, 92 time frame, there was no digital. There was only film. And today, kids, when they talk about a camera, they inherently mean digital. They don't even think of films anymore. It's gone. So yeah, I have seen that happen. And I am a little worried where things are headed. By the way, one more thing I should point out is we talk about digital world, but even today, 60% of the world is not on digital. Digital penetration in India is only about 26%. It's one of the worst in the world. We rank 140 out of 200 countries in terms of digital penetration. That is those who have some access to an internet. And that's kind of important because we are in the middle of all this cashless India, digital India, and so on. Our life today is getting more and more defined by the screen in front of us. How we interact with the screen is what a life is about. And if you think about it, the the death of distance and the death of time that started happening with the invention of railroad and telegraph in the 1800s. That has come to a point where you no longer measure distance almost in kilometers or time in seconds. It's measured about the processing power of your handset and what bandwidth it supports. So it's a very strange world that we are entering. Do you know, that's a question for all of you, what is the largest company in the world today, the highest valued company in the world today without a single product? That's a very, very good, but they all are all in the public domain. This company has not even come in the public domain. They're not trading. It's called Magic Leap. Magic Leap. It's doing what is called mixed reality. It's amazing that a company has been funded without any idea of a product inside, and this is a product-based company. I'll come to mixed reality in just a minute, but before that, let me clarify a couple of things which people might be confused about. I'm not sure. You hear these terms, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. Is everybody clear about what they are? Well, at least I see one hand. But let me just very quickly go about it. Augmented reality, you see every day. You watch cricket? Anybody watching cricket knows it. The ball tracking. That's a kind of augmented reality. Pokemon Go, which was such a great relief for parents that for the first time their kids were out in the streets. It's kind of, you put digital tags. A great application of augmented reality might be coming very soon, where you go to a foreign country and all the signs and letters are in some other language which you don't understand, and you look at it with the goggle or even on your smartphone, and it immediately translates it into a language that you understand. I think that's going to be great. You know, driving in South Korea, I almost can't do because all the signs are in language that I don't understand. And all of a sudden now, no problem. So, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that digital world is without its benefits. It has huge benefits. Otherwise, we won't be on it. One of the things I realized a long time ago, and that's actually one of the biggest advantage of digital, is that it doesn't matter how great your invention is, what the quality is. Main question is it easy to use? Ease of use pretty much trumps everything else. And that's what digital technology has done. That's what digital communication has done. All right, moving on. So I was talking about virtual reality. Now, so from augmented, let's go to virtual reality. Virtual reality, you know that you put on these goggles. Have you seen some of these goggles, like this HTC Vive or Oculus? You put this on, this weird-looking goggles. There's a great picture of, I think, Zuckerberg walking around across a room, and everybody is sitting with their goggles pointed God knows where. Now, what these goggles do is, it projects a real image or a computer-constructed image straight into a 3D image on your eyes so that you get a very immersive experience. You get disconnected from your real life. You don't know what's going on around you. But you enter a world where you seem to be inside it. Like even when you watch a TV or you watch a movie, you see a distance. With virtual reality, you're right in the middle of it. Now, obviously that has really, really great advantages that one can do with virtual reality like that. You can experience things in a way which you have never experienced before. Virtual reality storytelling. Well, okay, before storytelling, let me go to another important thing. You can now see things from different perspectives. So watching sports become a whole different ballgame. Oh, do you want to watch it from behind the goalpost, if it's a soccer? from the sides. You know, somebody does a great kick, you can now look at it from multiple angles. All of that is great for virtual reality. I think storytelling is going to evolve with virtual reality. This is always my pet question. How long would it take for us to make characters, movie characters? I'm not talking about animation, I'm talking about movie characters. Shah Rukh Khan was completely virtual. Very tough thing to do. But I think we are coming to that. And I would really welcome that, because that's the only way we can break the Bollywood stars' hold on movies. There are no stars here, right? Okay, good. But seriously, I think we are coming to that. I think we are coming to a point where, you know, today's movies, the storyteller that decides what you see. What is called a forced perspective. That is, the camera will move in a particular way to show you what the storyteller wants you to see. With virtual reality, you would be doing things in a completely different way. Think of a detective story where you become a character. You become an aid to the detective. So storytelling is going to evolve. It's not going to be just a storyteller and a listener or a viewer. The viewer and storyteller will merge, will play very interesting roles. Think of close-up. You know, in movies, one of the best ways you show emotion is going close-up on somebody's eyes. Eyes are the most important parts of our expression. I mean, I'm sure all of you can think of how many songs you know with eyes. Aankhon hi aankhon mein, all that sort of stuff. Now with virtual reality, that might change. Because the viewer can choose how you want to see it. Whether you want to go close, stay far. So the grammar of virtual reality in terms of storytelling is something that I have no idea of. And I don't think anybody really does. Peter Jackson has been talking about it. I think we might see an end to regular movie viewing. Which kind of brings me to a point, which is one of the things that's happening for us is that media and entertainment is moving from a collective experience to a very personal experience. You think of what you used to do. You used to take your friends and go to see a movie. You still do it. You know, at other times you would put up a screen and get a whole bunch of people and all of you laughing together, interacting and so on. And that's how you used to watch stuff. Think of a sports event. You organize a party around it. Yeah, you know, it's said in the US that when the Super Bowl, the halftime happens, all bathrooms get clogged up because that's when everybody goes up to take a leak. This collective thing is completely going. Things are becoming very personal. And that's why you see a rise, even in our everyday world, a shift away from TV, and I think that's the next talk. I'm very interested to see what Johar has to say about it. Shift from TV to what they call web series, or whatever might be coming after that. Something that you see in your handset, or on your laptop. Something that is very different from how TV is viewed. So these are all new ways of storytelling that's coming up. And I welcome this web series in a very big way. I hope in India, okay, let me say this. In India, we always find a way to screw things up. So I just hope that the producers that don't screw up the web series space. Because after a long time has come an idea which actually can be used in ways where TV can't be or film can't be. Film suffers from censorship issues. And TV has been set in that Saas Bahu stuff. I'll come to that in a moment. And yeah. It's I mean, I was going to talk about it later, but it's a huge problem. In India, I often see people who define their interpersonal relationships based on what's happening in TV. And I think digital this web series, digital web series, can perhaps make a break away from that. I don't know. We'll see. All right. So having talked about that, let me go very quickly to what is mixed reality. Mixed reality, as I said, in virtual reality, you have these big goggles, this Oculus or whatever you have, you put on your face. If you have seen a picture of that, I wish I had a picture. It's really weird looking stuff. There's this big goggles you put on your face and you look like a robot. Virtual reality, mixed reality, which is what Magic Leap is working on, is something where you have a very thin pair of glasses, just like the glasses you might be wearing, pretty lightweight, where your reality, our physical reality remains the same, but on top of it you superpose a digital world. Maybe a robot that's completely virtual, that's interacting with your character, that's interacting with you. So unlike virtual reality, where you get completely pulled out of your surroundings, in mixed reality, you will not be. You will be seeing as you are seeing, but on top of that, you are interacting with characters that are not you. That may be completely computer generated. What's more is that you can control the interface with your eyes. Just as you project things straight into your eyes, a camera can see where your gaze is going and how you're blinking, for instance. A whole bunch of moves will come, just like we now know of using our fingers on our smartphones to do a whole bunch of stuff. Similarly, moving our eyes, we would be able to control things. Like we can suddenly bring up a web page in front of us. So I think this is kind of the ultimate of this person. There you go. Here is, thank you very much. You should show it to everybody. I'm sure you will. Here is one of the goggles, of a virtual reality goggles that you put on. You see, there is nothing on the other side. This is what you put on. This is what is goes in your eyes. On the other side, there's nothing, because everything is generated inside and projected in your eyes. So, I think you've got pictures enough of this. So I think I just wanted to walk you through what's coming in terms of our digital communication and so on. I think what I miss the most in all of this is, if you go back, I grew up reading stories in books. In a book, your satisfaction comes from understanding or feeling what the character feels. From that, we went to film, where your satisfaction comes from seeing what the character is doing. In film, it's called, you are actors, you act. You do things, and that's what creates emotions. And in VR, or mixed reality, VR or MR, everything is what you feel. Nothing perhaps is left to imagination. And I think that's my segue to one of the biggest problems I see in the digital world, is this lack of independent thinking. It's so individually focused, and yet it's a consciousness of a cattle herd. It's such an uniformity that is being projected everywhere. You are almost being subliminally told what to think, what to feel, what to react to. To give you an idea, a few months ago, when there was a terrorist attack in France, in Paris, many of my friends got so upset. One of them said, I can't sleep at night. What happened? What's happening to my city of Paris? And yet, every day in India, 5,000 kids die of malnutrition or no nutrition. I've never heard my friend say, oh, I can't sleep at night. Think of, and perhaps now I'm being controversial, and let me be controversial. Think of this recent event in Uri, where Indian soldiers were very sadly killed. Very, very sad thing, and people reacted. Yet, and reacted to a point where it became almost a chauvinistic furor. Yet on the same day, in Kashmir, an 11-year-old boy was killed by the Indian Armed Forces. An 11-year-old kid. His bullet-riddled body was found the next day. I didn't see that being reported. Or even if it were reported, it would be a back-page story. I didn't see any TV anchormen or women going frothing in their mouth. An 11-year-old kid. And we couldn't share a single collective tear. So I think what's happening with the proliferation of media today is that far from giving us information, it is actually telling us how to think and feel. Now, one more thing I want to point out is that you take, just the other day there was a poll done in France where 91% of the respondents say that they have no trust in the media. And they have actually some choicest things to say. In the US, where the media is one of the most respected one, the most professional one, and supposedly the most upright one, only 6% of the people polled in the US said that they have trust in the media. And very likely that there's a good reason for that. There's some 15 billionaires in the US who control the entire media. 6 corporations in the US control 90% of the content. And this doesn't just include TV, it includes a bunch of digital, it definitely includes movie studios, it includes newspaper, it includes book publishers, not to speak of magazines. And I can give you the names of those 6. Those are Time Warner, those are Viacom, CBS, and Viacom and CBS might even merge. God knows what's going to happen to that. Of course, our good old Murdoch. How can we go live life without Murdoch? Murdoch's News Corporation. GE Comcast. And I think Disney, of course. So the 6. 90% of the content. And what's more, they actually, all of them are members of Council of Foreign Relations. A body, a think tank in the US, which is very closely tied to the government. And you see how the connection between the government, and of course there are also very, very big industrialists and so on are in it as well. You see how government policy gets reflected then in these media corporations. And then you know what are you being fed today in terms of, as information. I will leave that perhaps to discussion. But just before I leave this area, just know, this report came out just the other day, Pentagon hired a British PR firm during Iraq war to manage news. They spent $500 million on it. And what they did is that there were 3 kinds of stories. There was white stories, which were real stories. There were gray stories, which were, you didn't know whether it came from. And then there were black stories that they entirely made up. They would make up stories about insurgents, show views about videos of insurgents, not only to influence public opinion, but also to figure out who's watching. Now go forward into your virtual reality world and mixed reality world. If our smartphones is the way mass surveillance can happen, which we willingly carry in our hands, mixed reality, which has access to our thoughts, is perhaps we willingly enter the matrix. We willingly enter the mass surveillance state. And these are questions that are really important for us to deliberate on. along with other small details. Like think of virtual reality, where you create this world or somebody creates a world for you. Would murder be legal in virtual reality? What about molestation? What about you create a character, a virtual character, and there is another female virtual character, and you chase the female virtual character? What are the legal ramifications? I don't even know. So I think I seem to be saying a lot of bad things about digital communication. As we said, I talked about hyper-reality, and that hyper-reality is a term which a French philosopher Baudrillard had coined. It means that unlike, say, Bollywood, which is an escape for 3 hours, you go and come back, and you think you're Salman Khan, you take off your shirt, you wear your specs backwards and all that sort of stuff. Hyper-reality is one step beyond, where everything feels very real. You almost blur the difference between what is real and what is just a projection. Think about the reality shows. Think of the fashion shows. You look at a fashion show and you know that, well, that can never be me. But it's so possible. Advertising has taken us to that level. So, is everything all bad about digital? Hell no. As I said, we use it. I don't know, for instance, how I managed to communicate with people before a cell phone. Everybody has their ways, but I don't know how we did research. In Google, you can now Google pretty much anything. You tell something, and I'm sure few people will immediately search on Google to say if I'm telling the right thing or the wrong thing. But I think the other part of the digital is that there are a whole bunch of digital media that has come in, which people actually follow, from Politico to BuzzFeed and so on, which somewhat resides outside the 6 big corporations. In India, very recently there was a website, a web media that has been created called thewire.in. Some of you may even read it. For the first time I have heard somebody openly come out and say that our editorial policy would be our own. It will not be dependent on the government, either in form of direct interference or in form of ads. It will not be dependent upon the owners, because we know in India, media is pretty much a few business houses, a few individual houses that own it. It will not be based on the whims of these owners. We would be independent. And it will not be dependent upon ads. So it's a very interesting experiment. And Wire is doing pretty well. Actually, it's one of the larger, web news services. Can it be sustained? I don't know. There is still one more layer. The editors are sitting there and they're deciding what you see or what you get to hear. But at least these editors are independent. So I think that's a very, very positive thing, and I hope that trend picks up. Before I end, I want to talk about another very interesting thing that I read. You remember a few months ago, there was an aborted coup attempt in Turkey. You know how the mobilization against the coup happened? In fact, something people don't even know, that before the president Erdogan could come out and give a call against the coup, people had already started organizing against the coup. It's what happened, and there's a beautiful work that has been done to see how this network spread, where on the day of the coup, some people saw military planes flying at unusual altitudes and so on and started reporting it. That went viral via Instagram and Facebook. The next thing that happened is that probably people in the government took notice of it and started alerting their own organizations. Mosques picked it up and they started broadcasting that something like this is going to happen. And very quickly, there's a lovely thing that was done by Council of Foreign Relations, I think Foreign Policy magazine, when they showed how the connectivity went from one neighborhood to another, from one city to another, essentially starting in Istanbul and Ankara, spreading all over the country. So that by the time the coup happened, the coupists couldn't go very far. So this was one instance, and a similar thing happened with Egyptian revolution that happened at the beginning of the Arab Spring, the so-called Arab Spring, is that before authorities could do something, ground network, fueled entirely by digital communication, took note of it and acted on it. So instead of a top-down thing that I've been talking about all this time, it was a bottom-up. And I think social movements today, all over the world, have a great tool in their hands. What they do with it is, of course, their own. But as you know, I think we live in a society today, worldwide, not just in India, not just in the US, where the level of inequalities is probably something that dwarfs what existed during Roman Empire. And social movements for change have been around everywhere. Can they use this digital media in this disruptive role? Is one of the biggest questions. And lastly, I think digital communication should be a very big part of teaching kids. I want to get that quote. This is a lovely quote. Sorry. I want to get this quote. This is a beautiful quote I read. It said, "Children who have been taught to read and write in order to reread and rewrite the world are the greatest gift we can give to the future." And I think, compared to formal education, digital education, which can be so disruptive, which can go in such a spontaneous way, probably is the best way to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Sir, you have taken us to many realities. My one question before the house is thrown open for questions. My one question is, the television, almost 100 years old. It can be visualized that cell phone can be compatible with virtual reality. What happens to television? This is our worry.
I think I probably should not even answer that question, because I think the speaker after me is going to be talking about it at length. And I'm also very, very interested to know what would happen to television. Personally, I think, this is my personal opinion, all of these forms will coexist. It's not that it's just going to go away just like that. What is true is that things are becoming very, very personal. Things are becoming something where you want to consume it very close to you. And the distance, okay, if you really want me to take a pot shot, I think one of these days screens are going to disappear. It will be holographic displays where there is no real display in front of you. I mean, entering the holodeck.
The last question, last question.
Yeah. It's not a question, sir. Maybe I would like to, thank you regarding, putting things on virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. I would like to touch upon another segment. In VR, it's not only the headset. We have increased the technology into cave system and boom tube concept, where you are perfectly right. We don't need any headset. When you enter into a room, the whole room can be converted into a war zone, or it can be converted into Niagara Falls itself. And you can feel that, you can, enjoy that. So the communication, the whole process of communication is going to be a completely different angle. Now the question part. Sir, if you just give me a basic idea about the normal communication process and the digital communication process. If you look at that, usually I'm coming down from a very different kind of background. When I started, it was 1998, and I used to read storybooks, and I love till date to read storybooks on my lap. But now, when I read stories, when I go through any kind of documentation, it is purely digital. So what happens to all those old, smell of book, all those, fun part, and the feelings? Because VR and any other reality cannot change the whole thing. It can uplift that.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your comment. And you're very right, actually. One of the things I forgot to mention in VR, one of the things that I think is coming would be virtual travel, where you don't have to travel to, I don't know where you want to travel, to Croatia. No teleportation. You don't have to, it's a holodeck. Think of it almost as a holodeck, where, either as a goggles or as a just as you are, you project as if you are in walking through Croatia. And then after 5 minutes, you're done and you come back. I think those things are coming. But coming back to your question, I think that's what I kind of mentioned right in the beginning, that one of the best things about reading a book, reading a poem, is your imagination. You leave things to your imagination. And the more we take that imagination away, I think the more we become robotic. I think that's a much bigger question of what the normative things should be, what the values should be. But, I can tell you for me, I have a huge collection of books, and I make it a point to buy books. One of my favorite things in New York is to go to Strand, which is one of the largest second-hand bookstores in the world, and browse. As you very rightly said, that there are things that we are losing out on. I don't think I'm being nostalgic. I think I think Gabriel Garcia Marquez had said it's a revenge of nostalgia, so I don't want to get into that. But what I do want to get into is that, is digital world going to be allowing us for more independent thought? Or would we be thinking and hearing with somebody else's mind? I think that's, to me, the biggest question.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You have a financier, a producer, and a distributor? I will do it tomorrow. Tomorrow. Give me a distributor, a producer, and a financier. Tomorrow the movie would be made.
We shall now greet the panelists here. May I request Rashmi Chatterjee of Hello Heritage to kindly come up and greet Bedabrata on our behalf. Rashmi, incidentally, is the Executive Council member of the PRSI of the Kolkata chapter and one of the supporters of the conference through Hello Heritage. And may I request Subhash Mohanty to kindly come up on stage, Secretary Kolkata chapter, to greet Mr. Babji, please.